New Zealand has been on our bucket list for years, and the North Island completely surprised us. Over the next week, we would road trip across the North Island, staying in off-the-grid cabins, experiencing local culture, kayaking through glowworms at midnight, and taking a plunge over the tallest commercially rafted waterfall. And that's not even half of it. This trip ended up being so much more than we expected. We are Kinny and JJ, helping you with practical travel advice and itinerary ideas for you to travel with confidence. For this trip, we spent 2 weeks exploring New Zealand, starting in the North Island before eventually heading down to the South Island. We arrived in Auckland and spent 2 nights on Waiheke Island before road tripping to Atiamuri and Rotorua for 3 nights. We then went back to Auckland for 2 nights and then flew to the South Island. But before any of that could happen, we first had to actually get to New Zealand. Getting to New Zealand from the US isn't exactly easy. There are only a handful of direct flights, and those long haul flights can get really expensive. To help save money, we ended up piecing together our flights using a combination of airline miles, credit card points, and separate tickets. We used airline miles to book a one-way flight from DC to Dallas. Then we used credit card points to book a one-way business class flight from Dallas to Auckland. We purchased our domestic flights separately, and then we booked a one-way business class flight back to the US. The total cost per person for all of our flights ended up being about $3,747, which really isn't bad considering the distance and the amount of business class flying we were able to include. But there are a few things to understand if you decide to book flights this way. Since all of our tickets were booked separately, the airline couldn't tell that we actually had return flights from New Zealand, and therefore we could not check into our flight without help from an airline agent. Number 2, when you book separate tickets, your luggage can't be checked all the way through, so you'll have to leave plenty of time between flights to pick up your luggage and recheck it. And last, the layovers can get really long. We ended up spending 8 hours in Dallas before our flight to Auckland. Thankfully, the lounge access made the layover a whole lot easier. One last thing that's really important before traveling to New Zealand, don't forget about the entry requirements. Even as pretty experienced travelers, this was something we almost overlooked. You'll need to apply for a New Zealand visa waiver before your trip, and then within 24 hours of arrival, you'll also need to complete the New Zealand Online Travel Declaration. Okay, now that we've gotten all the boring logistical stuff out of the way, let's finally talk about the North Island. The first stop on our New Zealand itinerary was a short ferry ride from Auckland, Waiheke Island. After over a full day of traveling, Waiheke ended up being the perfect way to ease into New Zealand. The island is known for wineries, beautiful coastline, and a much slower pace of life. Our first 2 nights in New Zealand started off with one of the most unique Airbnbs that we've ever stayed in. Up an incredibly steep driveway, and then down a narrow cliffside path, passing the only toilet on the premises, you arrive to the cliffside retreat of Lover's Point. Here's what made this stay so special and a little different. It only has 1 bedroom, a compact kitchenette that functions on minimal electricity, no Wi-Fi, and just an outdoor shower. We spent our evenings on the deck listening to the birds with 0 notifications, and it was the perfect way to reset after a long journey.
We just had our very first night on New Zealand.
And it's beautiful here. We're in this really cool Airbnb that's on the water, secluded kind of from everyone. We don't have an indoor bathroom. We have a porta potty. And
there's an outdoor shower.
No air conditioning, anything like that. So we just have the windows open, netting around the bed, and it's beautiful.
Usually on our vacations, we just get off the plane and go. Here, we sat and looked at the water for about 5 hours. We got almost 12 hours of sleep last night, which was much needed.
Yeah, after a 33-hour travel day.
We spent our 1 full day surrounded by incredible scenery while exploring some of the island's most well-known wineries, along with a brewery, distillery, and olive oil tasting. You can get the full details of our adventure getting to Waiheke and spending time on the island in our video, Why Waiheke Island Should Be Your First Stop in New Zealand. Honestly, after the long flight, it ended up being the perfect way to slow down, relax, and ease into New Zealand before getting our North Island road trip started. After our relaxing time on Waiheke, it was time to take the ferry back to Auckland and head to the airport to pick up our rental car. The entire pickup process was very easy, and John was pretty excited to see if his driving on the opposite side of the road skills had improved since our Scotland trip. We are now heading out of Auckland to our next Airbnb. John's just trying to get used to driving on the left side of the road. We have our phones hooked up and it's using Android Auto for our navigation.
When I plug in Android Auto, it's something I'm very familiar with, which we talked about in our last driving video. I downloaded the maps offline, but I don't know if it'll work with the Android Auto part. Like if I'm looking at just normal maps, it might work, but I'm not sure.
Downloading the maps ended up saving us a ton of data. It's really simple. In Google Maps, go to the area you'll be traveling to, scroll over to More, select Download Offline Map, and then position the rectangle over the area you would like to save. It ended up being an easy way to keep our data usage low during the entire trip. Most people stick to the speed limit.
I guess it's, they're very strict with it. I think as a novice driver in New Zealand, it's much less stressful because there's not like in America where everyone's speeding and then pushing you up the road. Like it's a much more leisurely drive, and I feel like it's easier on my nerves.
The drive to Atiamuri took about 2.5 hours, transitioning from highways to quiet country roads surrounded by beautiful farmlands. And one thing that surprised us was that there were cows everywhere, including our Airbnb. This Airbnb would end up being one of the most beautiful remote Airbnbs that we've ever stayed at. But first, we had to get to it hiking straight up a hill while dodging cow patties and being closely watched by guard cows. Just to give you an idea of how steep this hill really was, there's our car, and at this point we're only about halfway up.
So, it's a little bit steep.
And a little long.
It's going to probably be hard to do at night, which we're going to be coming back pretty late every night. So, luckily, we brought flashlights. So, hopefully it's worth it.
After 15 minutes of hiking, there was finally light at the end of the tunnel. The tiny cabin sitting on top of the hill was absolutely worth every bit of effort it took to get there. This studio cabin ran on a combination of solar power and propane, with water supplied from a nearby stream. And while it did have an indoor toilet, the shower and bathtub were completely outdoors. We're on top of a hill in a little hut, and this hut is amazing. But one thing is that the wind is so bad that you can't really do much outside.
You can sit inside and look outside.
So I was able to take a bath this morning before the wind picked up, and it was fantastic. But then as soon as I was finished, John got in the shower, and
I got it started. It was great, and then within a minute, the wind picked up, and it was blowing 20 to 30 miles an hour and through the cracks, and it was chilly. I made it very quick.
The other thing about this fantastic cabin is that it is hard to get to, so at night we had to use a flashlight, and we are on a cow farm, and so I felt really bad. We scared the cows last night.
We heard stampeding cows in the darkness, and it was cool and weird at the same time.
And the cows here, they're so curious. They just want to see like what you're doing. So yesterday when we were leaving out, we had a whole herd of cows following us out the door. As beautiful as this place was, staying here definitely came with a little extra effort. All of the activities we had planned were around Rotorua, which was about 30 minutes away. Luckily, we knew this, and that's exactly what we signed up for. So with our home base set, it was finally time to start exploring Rotorua. Rotorua is one of New Zealand's main adventure and cultural hubs, known for its geothermal activity, Maori culture, and outdoor experiences. And over the next few days, we were able to pack in a little bit of all of it, starting with downtown Rotorua. Driving into town, you can't help but to notice the steam rising from the geothermal activity, along with the unmistakable smell of sulfur drifting through the air. While there are several geothermal parks that charge admissions, there are also plenty of free areas around downtown Rotorua where you can experience the geothermal activity up close, including one park with a free public foot bath. Next, we explored the Redwoods Forest. Located about 10 minutes from downtown Rotorua, the Redwoods Forest offers hiking trails along with a tree walk, which is a series of suspension bridges high up in the trees. We had originally planned to do the tree walk, but once we saw it in person, paying about $30 per person for a half-mile walk felt a little steep. They also offered this as a nighttime version, which looked much more interesting, and if we had more time, that's probably the one we would have chosen. Instead, we explored the free walking trails through the forest below the redwoods and still got to experience some of the absolutely beautiful scenery. One helpful tip, there's free parking along Long Mile Road. Next up is the Maori cultural experience. The Maori are indigenous people from New Zealand and remain a hugely important part of the country's history and identity. Because of that, experiencing Maori culture was something we really wanted to do. Rotorua has several different Maori culture experiences and villages to choose from. We decided to book an evening at Mitai Maori Village. The evening began with a walk through the family's land before watching a traditional warrior canoe ceremony on the river. From there, we experienced a cultural performance featuring music, storytelling, and of course, the haka. Followed by a traditional haingi meal consisting of lamb, chicken, and potatoes cooked in an earth oven using heated stones. Switching over to outdoor adventures, one of my bucket list items was seeing glowworms. Probably the most famous glowworm experience in New Zealand is Watomo Caves, but unfortunately that didn't really fit into our itinerary. Lucky for us though, Taiao Adventures offered a nighttime glowworm kayaking experience right out of Rotorua. The experience included wetsuits, booties, and a headlamp before taking us onto a local lake and through several tiny caves for up-close encounters with glowworms, which really aren't worms at all, but instead they're fly larvae that light up to attract prey. The tour lasted from 8 p.m. until midnight, and if you're on the fence about doing something like this, let me just say I highly recommend it. The guides were excellent and even provided hot cocoa and chocolate fish as a snack while we were out on the water. The next morning, we traded in a peaceful night on the water for something a little more adventurous. Located about 20 minutes from downtown Rotorua, Rotorua Rafting offers year-round rafting trips down the Kaituna River, including a ride over the world's tallest commercially rafted waterfall. The experience costs about $83 per person and lasts roughly 2 hours. About half of that time is spent getting fit with the provided wetsuit and safety gear, traveling to the river, and going through the safety briefing before hitting the water. Despite being classified as a Grade 5 rapid, you don't need any previous rafting experience to participate. In fact, I had never really rafted before. And yes, I did fall out of the raft. Thankfully, it wasn't on the waterfall, but was on one of the smaller rapids further downstream. Even in early March, the water was actually warmer than the air temperature, so I wasn't cold at all. After drying off, we spent some time exploring the trails around Tutea Falls before grabbing lunch nearby. After 3 nights in Atiamuri, it was time for us to leave our hilltop cabin behind and start making our way back to Auckland, but first we had a couple of stops to make. First was about an hour north at Hobbiton, the movie set used for the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit films. We have watched the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit trilogies multiple times, but we wouldn't call ourselves diehard fans. Because of that, I wasn't expecting Hobbiton to become one of the highlights of our North Island adventure. The attention to detail was incredible. Every path, garden, and hobbit hole felt like it belonged in a real village rather than just a movie set. My favorite part was getting to walk through one of the hobbit homes and see just how much thought went into creating the Shire. Admission was about $67 per person, and all visits are guided tours, so you can't really explore the set on your own. The tour also includes a complimentary drink at the Green Dragon Inn at the end of the tour. Fan or not, this ended up being an experience that I highly recommend. After leaving Hobbiton, we searched for a place to grab lunch along our route back to Auckland, and we happened to stumble upon Zealong Tea Estate. As it turns out, Zealong is New Zealand's only commercial tea plant. We didn't have reservations and we were not sure if we would be able to get in. Fortunately, they had availability for afternoon high tea for $47 per person. Delicious tea, food, and a beautiful view. This was an unexpected treat, and you should definitely add this to your New Zealand itinerary. After finishing up at Zealong, we returned our rental car and spent our final 2 nights on the North Island in Auckland, which felt like just the right amount of time to get the real feel for the city. We stayed at the Hotel Indigo, located right in the heart of downtown Auckland and within walking distance to many of the city's major attractions, restaurants, and waterfront area. Our room was both stylish and surprisingly spacious. We were also welcomed with a bottle of wine and local treats awaiting in our room, which is one of the many perks that can come with booking through a travel advisor. If you only have a limited amount of time in New Zealand, I would recommend getting out of the city and exploring the rest of the country. That said, we still wanted to make the most of our time in Auckland. We spent our first evening exploring the waterfront area.
It's a bit windy.
A little bit.
And trying a few restaurants that had received fantastic reviews. While some of the food didn't quite live up to the hype or the price tag, there was one exception. The Duck Island's ice cream flight might have been the best thing we ate in Auckland. We also checked out a few of Auckland's most popular attractions, starting with the Sky Tower. The Sky Tower is Auckland's most recognizable landmark. At 1,076 feet tall, it's the tallest freestanding structure in the Southern Hemisphere. It was fun being able to look out and spot places we had already explored, including Waiheke Island. Next, directly across the street from the Sky Tower is the All Blacks experience. Rugby is New Zealand's most popular sport, and the All Blacks are one of the most successful teams in the sport's history. The experience was very interactive, taking us through the team's history before giving us a chance to participate in some rugby drills and skills challenges ourselves. And I saved our favorite experience for last, Wētā Workshop Unleashed. Wētā Workshop is known for creating props, costumes, creatures, and special effects for films. And this interactive exhibit lets you step behind the scenes and see how movie magic is made. We got to see everything from animatronics
bright-eyed and bushy-tailed
and prosthetics to detailed miniatures, and even learned how camera angles can make small-scale models appear larger than life. The level of detail was incredible. So if you're a fan of movies, this is definitely something you should check out. The North Island completely surprised us. There was so much to do here that you could easily spend more than a week exploring. The Kiwi people are incredibly friendly, the driving was easy, and overall, we found it to be more affordable than we expected. Excluding flights and food, we spent just a total of $3,259 for the both of us. And as you saw, we packed a lot into that budget. But the adventure wasn't over yet. Next, we head to the south to explore some more of New Zealand's most iconic landscapes. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the South Island. And if you found this video helpful for your planning, please like and subscribe and leave us a comment. I had a lot of wind last night. It kind of felt like this hut was going to blow away. There was also a little critter outside, or I guess it was a little, it could have been a big one, I don't know.
It's probably small.
Trying to get in, so it was working really hard all night, scratching at something outside. If you want to plan the same type of vacation, we're